Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring you House Bill 5343 to put in Rhode Island law, put Rhode Island law in agreement with federal law as determined by the U.S. Supreme Court in its 1973 Roe v. Wade and subsequent decisions. The need to correct our law has never seemed more urgent. We have a president who campaigned with a promise, a vow, to appoint Supreme Court justices who will overturn Roe v. Wade. We have a U.S. Senate dominated by anti-abortion Republicans, and they will approve the next justices. I want to be clear, I'm not pro-abortion. I am pro-women's autonomy. The right of women to make their own decisions regarding pregnancy, so long as those decisions are made prior to fetal viability, or if after viability, to preserve the woman's health or life. Those of us who signed on as sponsor or co-sponsor of this legislation got emails generated by some anti-choice organization. Those emails began, please rethink your extreme abortion advocacy. They went on to suggest that the signers perhaps had not read the legislation and offered to walk the sponsors, the signers, through the legislation to explain what they were advocating doing. As a sponsor, I found this somewhat offensive that I was being told that I didn't know what I was doing, didn't mean to do what I clearly mean to do. The letter goes on to say that this legislation, 5343, would repeal and prohibit state restrictions on public funding for abortion and state employee coverage for abortion. The legislation cannot do that and does not attempt to do that. There is law in Rhode Island that says that municipalities can't grant insurance to municipal employees. That has been challenged in court and found unconstitutional. It was challenged by the NEA with a school committee that wanted to provide abortion coverage for school committee employees if they wanted it. So the legislation does not propose to do that, but there is that piece regarding municipal employees. The letter goes on to say that the legislation would prohibit the state from restricting or banning any method of abortion, including partial birth abortion. That's really not relevant. The federal government has a law that has been found constitutional by the Supreme Court banning partial birth abortion, except to preserve the life or health of the mother. So another piece of this legislation really makes, or this complaint about the legislation makes no sense. It suggests that the legislation would allow abortions after our long-standing quick child threshold. The quick child threshold has a number of definitions of what a viable fetus is. Some of them have been put in question more recently, but the legislation does not propose to allow abortions after viability, except, again, to preserve the health or life of the mother. And certainly not, as this letter suggests, does this legislation hope to allow abortion right up till the time of birth. The letter, in my mind, is someone's attempt to throw a bunch of mud at a wall and hope some of it sticks. I'm going through this now because I find it so offensive, and I want to make sure that people understand how wrong the letter is. The letter goes on to say that the legislation would prohibit state and local agencies from restricting the manner in which abortions are performed. Would take the health department out of the regulation of abortions. I will be 73 years old next month. As I told people at the press conference on February 1st, My very first experiment with sexual intercourse resulted in me getting pregnant. I was lucky in that I was able to have abortion performed by a doctor, but it was an illegal abortion in 1964. Many women at that time were not lucky enough to have a safe abortion provided by a doctor in a clinic. Many women died. A big part of the reason why I am so strongly devoted to keeping abortion legal is so that it will be regulated by entities like the Rhode Island Department of Health and like professionals in the Department of Health, not governed or regulated by people with ideas of what sounds gruesome or people who think that we can stop abortion by making it against the law. It won't work, it never has, and it won't work in the 21st century. Our intention is to, so that letter sent to, I believe, all the people who signed on to the bill. Some of you are in the committee. You remember getting a letter suggesting that you hadn't read the bill or didn't understand, and the letter writer did. I suspect that some of the people who signed that letter to us didn't read it themselves and hadn't read the bill. Anyhow, that was throwing mud at a wall, and unfortunately some of it stuck. Some of our colleagues signed the bill and then asked that their name be taken off. Most of them have spoken to me since then and said that there's some amendments to make clear at what point abortion would be legal. With some amendments, they want to keep abortion legal and safe and regulated in Rhode Island. They want to keep Roe v. Wade decisions the law of our land, and they will vote for the bill when it comes to the floor. Very important that you understand all that. This is not extreme. It is simply saying that Rhode Island will continue, as we are now, with abortions regulated by the Department of Health, legal to the point of liability, unless the woman's health or life is in danger. We simply want to put in law what is practiced now. I am happy to answer any questions.